Good morning. Welcome back. So last class we did parameterized constructors, invoking parameterized constructors using implicit call, explicit call and equal to. We wrote example programs for each, and then we did constructor overloading and we wrote an example for that also. In today's class we'll start with constructor with default arguments. Before this, let us know why do we need it. So, we have done function with default arguments. So, constructor with default arguments is very similar to function with default arguments. So, we'll say when do we use it and why do we use it. So, let me say I have a function sum and it takes int x, int y and int z. So it takes three arguments of the type integer and the name of the formal parameters are x, y and z. So what will I do here? Let me write C out as nothing but x plus y plus z. Fine. This is my function. That is, it has three formal parameters x, y and z of the type integer, and I am just printing the sum of that. And then in main, so in order to execute this I need to call it, and since it's a standalone function I will not be using any object here. For example, if I say sum 10 and then next time if I say sum 10, 20, tell me what happens here. Both of this will give me error. Why? Because it takes three parameters wherein I am passing only one or two here. So you are in shortage of one parameter here and two parameters here. So when you forget to give, or if you have not given exactly the number of formal parameters is not passed to the function, you can set default values to it. So you can set default values to the formal parameters during the function declaration. So if you don't pass it, it will take the default set value. Otherwise it will take whatever value it is there, whatever value you pass. Like for example, in sum I have 10 and 20. So 10 would get substituted to x and 20 would get substituted to y. If I had set some default value to z, that value would be considered. Even though all the three has default values, suppose I can set for all of that default values, only the one for which you do not pass, that time it will take the default value. Otherwise, it will always take the value which you have passed. Getting it? Now we'll see the rules which you have to follow when you are setting the default values to it. So consider all of this. For example, case 1 is for I have sum int x is equal to 10, int y, int z. Case 2 is sum int x is equal to 10, int y, int z is equal to 20. Third case, sum int x is equal to 10, int y is equal to 20, int z. Case 4, sum int x, int y is equal to 20, int z is equal to 10. Then case 5, sum int x, int y and int z is equal to 30. So these are the different scenarios. Let me see. Is this one allowed? This is wrong. Why? Because whenever I say default arguments, like if I have to set the default values, it should always be in this order. That is, I should start with Z and then move on to X. I cannot start from X to Z. It has to be from Z to X only. Please make a note of this. Whenever I have to set a default value, it has to be from Z to X, but not from X to Z. So this is wrong because I have set a value for X, but I should start from here. That is the Z. The next one, I have started from Z, yes, and I have set for, but I have left out Y in between. So this is also wrong because you cannot skip setting value to any one of the parameters in between. So if I start from Z, it has to be Z, Y and X only. I cannot skip any in between. So if I set value for Z, then if I want to set value for X, I need to set value for Y also. Like I cannot skip Y here. Here again, I have set value from here to here. That is wrong. It has to be from here to here only. So can I do this? Sum into X. Y is equal to 20, Z is equal to 10. Yes, it can. See, I can leave X here, but then I cannot leave anything in between. Getting it? If I here the X had value, Z had value and Y had left. But here it's continuous. So I can give to this or I need not. It depends on my wish. So Y is equal to 20, Z, there are no gaps in between. So this is allowed and you can leave it. Whenever you want, you can give, or if you don't want, you need not. So this is allowed. And again, the same logic holds good for this also. I have started from here. I give to this, or this is immaterial of this. This is correct. And whether if I have to give to this, I need to give value to this. Otherwise, it will give me an error. So these are the rules which you need to follow when you are setting default arguments. That is, it should start from right, go back to left, and then it has to be continuous. I cannot skip any values in between. And if I start from right, I have to start from right. I can give it to, if suppose there are 10 arguments, I can give it to the last 5 and I can leave the other. And here also for only one I can give, the other 2 can be left without any default argument. Now you tell me, if I say sum of 10, which one would get executed? And if I say sum of 5, 10, which one would get executed? Here it will execute this because already these two has value. 10 would get substituted to X. So X would be 10, Y would be 20 and Z would be 10. So 10 plus 10 is 20, 20 plus 20 is 40. Here, which one will get executed? Here, this one will get executed because X is 5, Y is 10, and then I have Z is equal to 20. It will take the default value of Z. So this is default arguments. Like if you don't give value, if you don't pass value to the formal parameters during function call, then you can make use of default arguments which you set during the declaration of the function. The same thing applies to the constructors. Only thing is, it is the same name as the class name declared in the public section of the class, and you don't use an object dot to call that. It is invoked during the creation of the object. Okay, so now let me go back to the statement of that. So what is a default argument? A default argument is a value, or it can be values, that is used automatically if you omit the corresponding actual argument while invoking the constructor. The same thing for the function also. The thing is, if suppose you need to pass 3 formal parameters, then you need to pass all the 3. If you miss out, then it will give you error. But if you would have set a default value to it, it will take that value. So if you don't default value would be considered only when you do not or you omit to pass the actual corresponding actual argument value. Actual argument is in the calling function, and in the called function header is the formal argument. Fine. So if suppose a constructor takes 3 integer values and you pass only 2 while invoking, it can be either explicit or implicit, then it will, for the third one, it will take the default value which you have set. But if you have not set any default values, it will give you error. So default values are set so that while if you omit to pass the values while calling a constructor or while invoking a constructor, then it will take the default values and it will execute without errors. Getting it? So now we'll do one program here, a program to calculate and print the average of physics, chemistry, mathematics and computer science marks scored by a student, and you need to print it using constructor with default arguments. The thing is, you need to ask the user to enter the marks for physics, chemistry, mathematics and computer science. You need to find the average of that and you need to print it. And you have to use which concept while writing this program? You need to use the constructor with default argument concept. Please make a note of the program statement. Now let me start with my program. Hash include IO stream.h hash include conio.h. Next, class is a keyword. Let me name it as average only because I am going to calculate the average. So let me name the class as average. Then I will start with the private. Again, private is an access specifier, which means that anything in private cannot be accessed outside the class. It can be only accessed by the member functions of the class. Okay. So I'll say float avg. Okay. This is one data member. Then in the public section, I have a constructor. To which I am going to pass 4 float arguments. So it becomes a parameterized constructor since I am passing parameters to it. And being a constructor, it has the same name as the class name and it is declared in the public section of the class. It does not have any return type. Only constructors are functions which do not have any return type. So let me have one more function, a member function, void the return type and display. I am not passing any arguments to it and it is not going to return any argument. So this is my class, in which this is the class, this and this are access specifiers, data member, and this is constructor, and this is a member function. Fine. So this is the class wherein it has one data member which is of float type. Float means it will have both the integral as well as fraction part. Average, avg, I am naming it as, and the name of my class is average, and then Average is a parameterized, it has a parameterized constructor which is going to take 4 float values. That is, I am going to pass 4 float values, and then I have display is a member function which does not return any value, that is why it is void, and then this brackets, open and close brackets here are blank, so it means that I am not going to pass any values to it. So it is no return, no argument member function. So I have closed my class here. Please make a note of it. Now let me start with my constructor. Since it does not have a return type, the name of the class to which it belongs to, then average, float P, C, M, CS. Fine. P, C, M and CS are my formal parameters. Each one is of type float. And then what am I doing here? I am saying AVG. What is AVG? AVG is a data member of the type float which I have already declared in the private section of the class. So I will say P plus C plus M plus CS by 4.0. Fine. This is my this one. What is this? This is my constructor. Now tell me, by seeing this, have I set the default values here or not? No, I haven't set any default values here. I have just written a parameterized constructor, assuming that all the 4 values would be passed when it is invoked. Whether it can be invoked in the implicit call or the explicit call, I have assumed that they are going to pass, or all the 4, that is P, C, M, CS. These are the 4 formal parameters I have, and assuming that all the values of all the 4 formal parameters is going to be passed. Suppose if it doesn't happen, then it will give you error. So how will I set my default value? This one without value, right? Please see that this one is without default value. I haven't set any default value to it. So, but we are writing the program with default value. How will I do that? And don't write both of this in the same program. It will give you error because the function signature will remain the same. So, let me write with default arguments. How do I do that? So, just to show that without default argument, how will I write it? With default argument, how will I write this? Average, then average, float P. Let me not give any default value to P. Float C is equal to, let me say 35.0, float and a comma here, float M is equal to 35.0 comma CS is equal to 35.0. This one is fine. So see, if I pass 1, it will take for the 3 35.0. If I pass all the 4, it will take all the 4 values. If I pass 3, then for CS it will take this. If I pass 2 for mathematics and CS, it will take the other 2, whatever you have passed. So this is how you write a function or constructor with default arguments. So I've said CS is equal to 35.0, M is equal to 35.0, C is equal to 35.0, and I have not given any value to physics. So each one should be explicitly specified as float. Here also I have to specify, here also. The only difference between this and this is equal to value I have given here, wherein here I have given equal to value, here I have not given any values. So the same constructor without default arguments is here, and the same constructor with default arguments is here. So it is starting from here to here. See, I can see it is continuous, nothing is skipped in between. Float P, if I want in future, I can give, or you can give for float P also, but then I don't want to give for float P. So let me give it for the other three. Getting it? So in your program, you write this one, and then what is the body here? I will say AVG is equal to P plus C plus M plus CS by 4.0, and it will be stored in the AVG. So don't write this. I just wanted you to see, like, without default argument how will my constructor look, and with default argument how will my constructor look. So what is the difference? The body remains the same, the header also, like float P. Only difference is after that I am giving equal to and a value to it, default value to it, so that if I don't pass it during the during invoking the constructor, please do consider the default value. Otherwise, whatever value I send, it will be considered in your program. Write this code, that is average float P, comma float C is equal to 35.0, comma float M is equal to 35.0, comma float CS is equal to 35.0. And in the body I will write AVG, that is already declared in the class, you would have remembered, is equal to P, C, M, CS, sum of all this upon 4.0. So please have a look and make a note of it, and hopefully you have understood the difference between the two and how to give default values to a argument. So now I need to write my display function. How do I write it? Return type of the function, name of the class to which it belongs to, scope resolution operator, name of the function. So I will say cout average is equal to average. This is my display function. That is, this average would be displayed as it is, and whatever is the value which you have calculated in the constructor would be printed here. Yeah. Now I will write my main. How do I write it? Clear screen, float N1, N2, N3 and N4. Cout, enter 4 subject marks, or I can say enter P, C, M and CS marks. Scene N1, N2, N3 and N4. So I am asking the user to enter the marks of physics, chemistry, mathematics and computer science, and I am taking in N1, N2, N3 and N4, and this is cascading of input operator. And what are these type? It is of the type float only. Okay. After this, to invoke, how do I do that? Now first I have to create an object. Okay, let me say I will use once implicit and once explicit call, and let me see how I will do that. So what was the name of the class? Average. A1, I will say N1, N2, N3 and N4. Average A2 is nothing but N1, N2, N3. Average A3 is N1, N2. Then A1 dot display A2 dot display A3 dot display get CH. So now tell me what happens. For example, if I say, let me write a trace of that. If I say N1 is equal to 92.5, N2 is equal to 65.2, N3 is equal to 42.4 and N4 is equal to 98.2. These are the values I have entered. As a user, I have entered N1 is equal to 92.5, N2 is equal to 65.2, N3 is equal to 42.4 and N4 is equal to 88.4. So this is my program. So tell me what will it happen. I have closed my main here. I have started it here. So what did I do? First I said float N1, N2, N3 and N4. So these are the float variables. See out, enter the physics, chemistry, mathematics and computer science marks, and here in this statement for example I have written this, like I have taken N1 is 92.5 marks, N2 is, that is chemistry, is 65.2, mathematics is 42.4 and computer science is 98.2. These are the marks scored by the student. Now what happens in the first case? What am I doing here? All the three are implicit call only. So average A1, that is creation of an object, correct? A1 is an object I am creating and I am passing N1, N2, N3 and N4. So it will go to the constructor because it is going to take. What do I do in the constructor? So it will say average is equal to, what is this? 92.5 plus 65.2 plus 42.4 plus 98.2. It will have 4.0. It will calculate this and that value would be stored in average. Fine. During this time, because all the four I am passing. So suppose if I have entered these values, it will take these values only. It will not take the default values. So it is 92 point, and in the constructor I am just calculating the average and I am storing it in the variable. Okay, so it is 92.5 plus 62.2 plus 42.4 plus 98.2 and everything upon 4.0 will give you the average, and that gets stored in this. Fine. The second one, AVG A2. So you cannot reuse A1 only, because every time you have to invoke the constructor, you need to create a new object. Fine. A2, N1, N2, N3. So where will get N1 get substituted? In this statement, where will N1 get N1 would get substituted in the header like P. So what will be the value? Like what will it do? The constructor will say, will do 92.5 plus 65.2 plus 42.4 plus, say I haven't given the N4 value. So when I don't pass the N4 value, it will take the default value. What have I set it there? 35.0. So it will do it. the value here n1, n2, n3 I have sent, so it will take these 3 values only. For n4 I haven't sent any value, so it will take the value which is there, which is nothing but 35.0. Then in this case it will take the first 2 values and the remaining would be 35.0 plus for mathematics and 35.0 for the computer science. It will only take this. So display A1 dot display would find the sum of all of this and do it. A2 dot display is the first 3 plus 35.0 because I am not passing that, so that would have been considered. It will print me that by 4.0. Here the third one, that is A3 dot display, would give me 92.5 plus 65.2 plus 35.0 plus 35.0, the whole sum upon 4.0. That value would be given with A3 because I am passing only 2. So other 2 for N3 and N4 it will take the default value there. Here only for N4 it will take the default value. For this it will not take any default values. So please have a look. Hope you have understood the constructor with default arguments. Now we'll do one lab program before going to the copy constructor concept. So please write down the statement of the lab program. Write a program to find sum of the series (1 plus x square plus x cube plus x raised to n using constructors. So using constructors you need to write a program to find the sum of the series 1 plus x square plus x cube, like up to x raised to n using constructors. So in this, please see here 1 plus, the series is starting from 1 plus x and x square, like this it goes up to x raised to n. What you need to take from the user? You need to take this x value from the user as well as number of terms you need to take. What do you mean by a term? This is a term. This is also a term. That is number of terms in the series. So that is n, like x raised to n, where it should stop. Like see, I want 3 terms. So how will I write it? 1 plus x square plus x cube. This is 3 terms. Same way, number of terms you need to take, and you need to take the base, like x value also from the user. So for example, if I say x is 2 and n is 3, so my series should be 1 plus 2 plus 2 square plus 2 cube. The sum of this should be the output. This is the question what you need to find. So you need to take 2 values from the user. One is the number of terms and one is the x value. What is the x value and how many terms you need to calculate, and you know what is a term. So I have given one example also. If the x value is 2 and n value is 3, that is the number of terms, then you need the series sum should be 1 plus 2 plus 2 square plus 2 cube. So the sum of this should be the output. Getting it? So hope you have understood the statement of that. Then we'll start with the program. So we'll start with # /include iostream.h conio.h. Let me start with a class, okay, and then since it is a sum of the series, let me name it as series only. The name of my class is series only. In that, let me have int base, okay, and num and sum and t. So these are the variables, data members of my class. How many I have? I have 4 data members: base, num, sum and t. Fine. The name of my class is series. So in the public, let me have, first is my constructor. So how do I write my constructor? In the public section, it has the same name as the class name, no return type, and let me pass 2 integer values to it. So it's a parameterized constructor. Then let me have a function called calculate, which calculates the sum of the series. Void calculate, and let me have void display. Fine, which will display the output. End of my class. So what am I doing here? My class, this is my class. These are data members. This is constructor. And these two are member functions. So I have a class called series. In that I have 4 integer values, variables, that is base, num, sum and t. Okay. And then in the public section I have a constructor, a parameterized constructor, to which I am going to pass 2 integer values, and then I have a member function called calculate. It is not going to return any value and I am not passing any value to it. And again void display, it is not going to return any value and I am not going to pass any value to it. The question was finding the sum of the series. Getting it? So please make a note of this. Now I'll start with my constructor. Since the constructor do not have any return type, so I will say series is the class to which it belongs to. Scope resolution operator, name of the constructor is same as the class name. So I will write the same thing. And how many arguments does it take? It takes 2 integer arguments. Let me say int x comma int n. So x and n are formal parameters. Inside this I will say base is equal to x, num is equal to n and sum is equal to 1. So what am I doing here? Whatever is the x value gets stored in base, whatever is the num n value gets stored into num, and since the series is starting from 1, I will say sum is equal to 1. So base, num and sum were declared in the class as the class variables, right, as class data members. So whatever I am passing, this value, x value gets substituted in base, and I am assigning the n value to num, that is num will have the n value and sum is equal to 1, and this is my constructor. Right? Hopefully you will have no doubts in this. Next is, let me write my calculate function. How do I write it? the return type void, name of the class to which it belongs to, series, and name of the function calculate. So I have also declared one more variable called t, right? T is equal to base. So what will the base value have? X value is nothing but the base value, whatever I had passed. Fine. And then I will say for int I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to num I plus plus sum is equal to sum plus t. Then t is equal to t star base. Close it and close it. Fine. This is my calculate function. Let me write a trace of this. For example, if I say x is equal to 2 and n is equal to 3, these are the values which I am passing, wherein x is equal to 2 and n is equal to 3. And in the constructor, I said base is equal to x, right? In the constructor, I said base is equal to x. So, what is x value here? 2. So, base is nothing but 2. And again in the constructor, I said num is equal to n, that is equal to 3. Fine. This is established, that is base is equal to x is equal to 2, num is equal to n is equal to 3. Now, in the calculate, what am I doing? T was declared in the class, so is equal to base. So, what will be the value of t? Is nothing but 2, correct? The base value is 2, so t becomes 2. Now, for the for loop, I is equal to 1 here, and then I less than or equal to num. So, what is the num value? Num is 3. Definitely 1 is less than 3, it will come here. Sum is equal to sum plus t. In the constructor, I had initialized sum to 1. So, it is 1 plus what is the value of t? T is 2, correct? And then t is equal to t into base. So, 2 into 2, which is nothing but 2 square, correct? Now, go back, increment the value of I becomes 2, and 2 definitely is less than 3. It will come inside. Sum is equal to sum. What was the previous value of sum? It is 1 plus 2, correct? Plus t. What was the value of t here? That is 2 square. Again, t is equal to t. What was t value? 2 square into 2, that is for t cube. Go back, increment the value of I is 3. So, 3 is equal to 3, it will come here. Sum is equal to sum plus, what was the sum value here? Here 1 plus 2 square and plus t. So, it is t here is 2 cube, then t is equal to 2 cube into 2, that is 2 raised to 4. Increment the value of I becomes 4. 4 is neither less or equal to. By that time, the sum would have the value 1 plus 2 square plus 2 cube. This was the last value before exiting, and it will calculate this value and it will be a single number, the sum of that. Getting it? That will be 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8. So, have a look. This is the trace of it. That is, t is equal to base, And what is the base value? For example, x is equal to 2 as a user I would have entered, and n as a user I will enter 3. So, I will pass that to the constructor, and then in the constructor base is equal to x. So, base will become 2 and num is equal to n, which is nothing but 3, because these 3 are the values I have entered. You can enter any value. So, then I will say one more variable I had declared again, which is of the type integer only in the class. So, I say t is equal to base. So, what was the base value? 2. So, t is equal to 2. Then I am starting with int I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to num I plus plus. So, I is 1, I less than 3. Like this it goes on incrementing and calculating. This is the trace for calculate function, and by the time you exit the for loop, the sum will have the required sum of the series. That is, the sum variable will hold the required sum value. After that, what do I need? I need to write the display function. So, void is the return type of display. The class to which it belongs to is series, scope resolution operator and display. After this, what will I do? Cout, enter, so the sum of series and then sum I will enter. This is my display, my end of the class. Hope you have understood that. That calculate function, hope you have understood. And then I am just displaying the sum. By the time in the calculate function you exit the for loop, you would have calculated and stored the sum value. Next, let me write my main function. How do I do that? Void main. Next is clear screen. Integer value 2 I need to pass, so I need to declare int x comma n. Fine. Cout, enter the base and the number of terms in the series. Cin x n. So, I have taken the base value as well as the number of terms in the series from the user. Now, I have to invoke the constructor first, and then I need to call the calculate function, and then I need to call the display function. How do I do that? So, let me first create an object. The object creation, name of the class. So, SOBJ, let me say, is equal to series x comma n. This is the explicit function call. Okay, I am calling it using explicit way. Explicit call. Till now we did implicit. Let me use explicit here. This works with implicit also, but then I wanted to make use of explicit. How will I say? Series SOPG is the name of the object, is equal to constructor, then x comma n. I have to pass 2 integer values because constructor takes 2 integer values, and this x and n value, that is base and the number of terms in the series, has been taken from the user. Whatever the user has entered, I have passed here. After that, what do I do? After taking in the constructor, what I am doing? I am assigning x value to base and n value to num, and sum is equal to 1, and where base and num are the class variables. Correct? After that, I have to call the calculate function. How do I do that? Object dot calculate. Since it does not take any values, I am not passing any values. After that, in calculate, whatever is the final value would be stored in sum, but sum is displayed in the display function. And close my main. So, this is how my main would look. Please make a note of this. Hopefully, you have understood this. In today's class, we did constructor with default arguments and why do we need it, and we did one lab program. Please note down the homework questions. Tomorrow's class we will be doing copy constructor, which is again a very important topic in the exam point of view, and we will also be doing destructors. That is, tomorrow we would be completing this chapter. Please note down the homework questions. First one, can a constructor return type a value? Second question, what should be the access parameter for constructor declaration? Third question, how many types of constructors are there and what are they? Fourth question, how many default constructors can exist for a class? Fifth one, what are the drawbacks of default constructor? Please make a note of this. All these are 1 markers. Can a constructor return a type value? What should be the access parameter for constructor declaration? How many types of constructors are there and what are they? How many default constructors can exist for a class. What are the drawbacks of default constructor? Please make a note of this. Tomorrow's class will be completing Constructors and Destructors chapter. Till then, have a nice day. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.